Thank you, President Griscom.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you being here today and having the honor of representing York County. I can tell you that I've seen the huge impact of Thaddeus Stevens on our local labor force and economy. So yesterday we heard from the Department of Labor and Industry Secretary Alexiak, and he confirmed that we have 263,000 jobs that are open looking for workers here across Pennsylvania. So a lot of these jobs require training and skills that people can receive at your institution, and I think that you fill a major missing piece between that unskilled labor force and the employers by giving students the needed tools, training, skills to succeed in our labor force. So Thaddeus Stevens is bucking a lot of trends as well. We had PASHE here last week, and they've seen a more than 20% decline in enrollment between their 14 state-owned universities. Only Westchester and Millersville have continued to grow. So you started to address it in your last response. Can you continue to walk me through it? What you have seen that has made you successful to be able to grow and be relevant in today's very competitive and oftentimes struggling higher education market?
I think that putting the information out is something that the administration or the General Assembly could do. I think that if you required that every institution that receives a direct appropriation or that receives an indirect funding through a FIA grant, and possibly a Pell Grant, that they simply disclose the information about the performance of programs to prospective students and their parents prior to them enrolling in the program. I can't think of anything you could do that would be a quicker way to align the output of higher education with the needs of the economy. Who's going to sign up for a program in criminal justice or elementary school education or communications or psychology or whatever, that only 10% of the students are going to graduate and get jobs in their field and have $50,000, $60,000 worth of student loan debt and make median wages? I mean, they're just not going to do it. But we don't disclose that information to them. And we do on our website, and I think everybody should be required to do the same thing. And I think if you did that, people are going to make rational decisions. They're consumers, they're intelligent, they're going to make decisions that benefit them. So I think that we should disclose the performance of our programs. I just think it's ethical. It's the right thing to do. We should provide people with information about the programs that they're about. If you're going to make a major investment in your life, when I went to school, I worked my entire time. I grew up under minimal financial situation. I worked the whole time from the time I was a kid. I grew up on a farm, and I worked the whole time I was a kid. And I paid for it as I went. It wasn't that expensive. Today, that's not the case. It's really expensive. And I remember the most significant thing I dealt with was a mortgage. These folks are dealing with $200,000, $300,000 worth of student loan debt in some cases, less than that in many cases. And they're just behind the eight ball from the beginning. So I think I think four-year degrees are great, and we certainly need them. We need them in healthcare, we need them in industry and engineering and business and so forth. And they have the opportunity to pay off that student loan debt in a reasonable amount of time and go on and live the American dream of buying a house, having vacations, and so forth, and providing for their kids. But that's not the case in many outcomes. So we do have capacity issues, but I think we have more of an alignment issue than we do a capacity issue. I think we're not aligning the capacity have with the needs that are out there. We need more engineering programs, more industrial programs, more healthcare programs, more business programs than what we have. And I think by disclosing that information to prospective parents and their students, that automatically would help align the output of higher education with the needs of the economy.
And I agree with you, and I commend you for that, because I certainly think a student's return on their investment in their education is exceedingly important. Your fellow institution, Penn College, was here earlier, and they shared that they're constantly looking at what programs they need to add or remove. So can you explain to me how you add or remove programs and what you base it on?
Adding programs is easy. We simply look at the number of opportunities that are out. We have a program criteria sheet that we look at, and we look at, is the program technical in nature? Can the types of students that we attract successfully matriculate through that program? What are the capital startup costs? We have a business model that we use for every one of our programs that's highly dependent on technology to reduce the amount of human costs that are involved in the programs. So we look at a whole number of things, and we know that programs that are successful with us require a certain amount of capital startup cost, pretty much will maintain their costs during the time that they're operating, but about every 5 years, really it's during that entire 5 years, but from a business planning model, we look at about every 5 years we'll have to make a fairly significant capital investment to increase the technology so that it's current. So that's how we look at those models. So we judge programs based on that. We have a number of existing programs that literally we could quadruple in size if we had the resources. Electromechanical, I could put 10 times more students in that program than what I currently have. I could welding program, same thing. I just simply don't have the resource. Capacity is my issue. I don't have a capacity of bringing students in. I'm not looking at 2015, 16 like everybody else is and saying, gee, there's going to be a big depression in the high school graduation rate. I'm pretty confident that we're not going to have a problem with that because we're seeing an increase in the number of people and that understand these are where the opportunities are. We're doing this in 2 years, not 4, 5, and 6. We're doing it in 2 years. That's pretty quick investment. You can come in here. Our median student loan debt, like I said, is $9,000. A lot of our students pay that off in 4 or 5 months after they graduate, and then they're out there buying. Our graduates are buying homes, they're driving the economy, they're buying cars, they have disposable income. So to me, that's how we look at things. So that's how we look at programs. In terms of eliminating programs, we've eliminated a respiratory care program we had a few years ago. It was the best program, I feel, in Lancaster County, maybe one of the best ones in the state. But when I looked at all the other schools that were adding respiratory care and I looked at what the demand was when we looked at it as a collective, we felt that it wasn't the right thing to do, so we terminated that program. I have 2 programs right now that are extremely successful in terms of the graduates. The graduates graduate, they get great jobs, there's a huge demand for them, but they're not progressing and graduating the number of students that the rest of our programs are. So they may be really great programs, they may just not be great programs for us. So we're trying to find out what the factors are that are contributing to their lack of progression and graduation rate. Placement rate is certainly strong. And if we can solve that problem, we're going to solve it. If we can't, those programs will need to be replaced with other programs. We're also looking at our programs that are high performing. I have an electrical program that I've doubled in size over the last couple of years that has a 90% progression, 90% graduation rate, and has a very diverse population that it serves, and it has a 100% placement rate. I got to figure out why that program is so successful and standardize those factors over the entire organization. And that's what we do every week. We have more dashboards than any college in America. We measure everything that we do, and that's how I manage the organization, by looking at what's 3 standard deviations above or 3 standard deviations below the median that we should be achieving. And when I see a red flag, we bring everybody in, we say, what's going on here, what can we do? We unpack the data, and we try and make decisions that take us forward. And that's continuous improvement. That's part of my background, and that's what we try, and that's why I think that our performance will improve, over time.
Well, we thank you very much for that. We really appreciate your focus on not only the state, but the students' return on investment and closing the skills gap and helping to grow our economy, putting people in jobs. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.